Hello, it's Jo here, one half of the Crypto Sisters. It's 8 a.m. in the UK. I wanted to bring you this. I thought it was a really good interview and very interesting, especially for the Americans that listen to my channel. It's by Investing with Jam Bart. Please go and check his channel out. He's excellent and he has some great videos.
Hey everybody, Jam Bart here. I'm excited about today's video because I have a special guest. I have an actual legal attorney and business owner who deals specifically with cryptocurrencies and all things around cryptocurrencies. He owns his own firm. He's the owner of this website here, legalcrypto.pro. He's also a businessman with extensive business, international and national business. Used to be the CEO of a large company. And I'm really excited to bring him on here today because I think there's a lot of unanswered questions that people have about the crypto space and legal obligations around the crypto space. So his name is Joshua Cotter, and he's here with us. Hey, Josh, how you doing, man?
Good, Bart. Thanks for having me on. Excited.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you being here, and I think you really have quite some good insight to bring to the community that a lot of us just never hear because we're kind of like in our own echo chamber where we just talk about these things that we really don't. I mean, we're not legal professionals, so glad to have you here. Let's get started with the first question, which is
sounds good.
People have a lot of questions dealing with legal stuff in the crypto space. What's the number one question that you receive as a crypto lawyer?
Sure. That's a good question. Before I get into it, I'll just say, nothing I'm going to say is legal advice. Anything legal advice, those kinds of things, counsel requires knowing specific facts in any case or issue. So this is general, if that's okay.
Yeah,
is that okay?
That's fine. Yeah,
okay,
totally
great.
fine.
Okay. So if I understand your question right, you asked, people have a lot of legal questions about crypto, the cryptocurrency space. What's the number one question that I receive
Correct.
as a lawyer in that space? Sure. So probably the number one question that I receive is, what does the government think they're playing at? This is cryptocurrency. It's not regulatable, is it?
Yeah, it's a great question.
So, there's a premise there in that question that relates to, what can the government regulate? And there's this prevailing thought that cryptocurrency is kind of off limits because of its decentralized nature. So that's the number one question I get.
Wow.
What would you like? How would you like to follow up on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, so is it? I mean, is it totally unreal? Like, how do they deal with that?
Well, pretty simple answer, and it's not popular in the cryptocurrency space, and I'm not advocating this position, but really the answer to that question relates to the Commerce Clause in the U.S. Constitution, which basically states that the federal government has the power to regulate interstate commerce. So anytime you've got commerce, business crossing state lines, even in minor ways. So the U.S. Supreme Court has interpreted the Commerce Clause in the United States Constitution over the many years since the formation and beginning of our country. The U.S. Supreme Court has interpreted the Commerce Clause, and it's become broader and broader over time. So bottom line, is there interstate commerce? Is there business or commerce that's crossing state lines? If there is, then under the Commerce Clause, the federal government has the power to regulate. So, and in fact, probably roughly 95+ % of all federal laws are tied to the Commerce Clause.
Okay.
So every law that the federal government makes has to relate to some specific provision in the United States Constitution, because pursuant to the Constitution, all things that are not specifically given to the federal government are reserved to the states.
Gotcha.
And the Commerce Clause is the kind of catch-all that the U.S. Supreme Court has used over the decades and over the years to say, yes, this is regulatable. This is something that Congress can govern. That's the catch-all.
Okay, so even though cryptocurrencies are decentralized, they still can regulate the use of them, but even though they can't necessarily control the coin itself.
Right. So that's your question really relates. That question really relates to de facto, right? It's decentralized. How does the government actually get its hands around something and force things to happen? that's going to be tricky with cryptocurrency. Where the government is going to have an easy time is when something pertains to especially citizens, individuals in the United States, as those people interact with something that's decentralized. So through tax code, through securities laws, if in fact, down the road, it is ultimately determined that in fact cryptocurrencies, in certain forms at least, are securities or not, or
Okay.
certain kinds of offerings related to cryptocurrencies.
Okay. Wow.
So,
okay.
yeah.
I guess before we move on to the next question, I kind of forgot to say, if any of the listeners, if you guys have any questions or comments, please write them down below. And we're going to be doing multiple videos with Josh here talking about legal things in the crypto space, because we think that this is a very underserved space, and we need to get this information out there. So if you do have questions or comments, please post them down below, and we'll try to answer those in the next video. As well, Josh is actually going to be creating his own YouTube channel in the future here, and we're going to have that linked down below as well. All right, so the next question I got for you, Josh, is there's been a lot of scams in the crypto space lately. Realistically, what action can people take?
Sure. So I assume you're primarily talking about high yield interest platform type programs.
Correct.
Okay, and many have gone down recently. So it's a very good question. The answer to the question is, so the answer itself is one of the reasons that many people hate attorneys, because the answer is it depends. It depends on so much. It's very, very fact specific. So every case is separate and distinct. And I want to be a little careful to not kind of lump everybody's circumstances here or there, or in relation to this high-up platform or program to be exactly the same as another. So everyone's got to understand it's very, very fact specific. Every legal case is. So really your question gets down to recovery. Is that right?
Yeah. Like, can I recover my funds?
Right. Okay. So there is a dichotomy here. There is a distinction that has to be made. The two issues, the dichotomy here is, do you have a legitimate or a legal suit or claim or issue that you could prevail on? And then secondary to that, which comes after, is, can I recover? And that's really what your question is about. Can I recover? So it is possible, entirely possible, that someone has a legitimate legal claim and that they can or will, or maybe in the future even do, prevail upon. The court, in other words, says, or a jury says, the organization was wrong, you were right, here's your judgment. Here's your judgment that is awarding you money, okay? At that point in time, once you have the judgment, now you get to begin recovering on the judgment. And it's possible that, it can be difficult to recover. And that's true in any case, not just these kinds of cases, or issues related to high-up platforms. So we actually have a term of art in the legal industry. It's called being judgment proof. That kind of sounds like some legalistic protection that bars recovery. Really what the term judgment proof is about is you can win the judgment, but if the party or the organization or the person or whatever that you're going to recover against, in other words, the people or entities that were the defendants, that the court gave you a judgment against those people or those entities, if they don't have money, identifiable assets to get your recovery from, then they're judgment proof because there's nothing to get. So let me come back to that in a second here. Kind of some general theories of recovery. So this is speaking to having a legitimate claim, right? So in kind of general tort law, sometimes we talk about it as negligence law, or you can talk about it as tort law. The relevant questions there are, was there a duty owed? Was there a breach of that duty? Did the breach of that duty cause damages? And is there both proximate and legal causation? Two types of causation. You've got cause and fact causation, which just means one thing caused another factually. Then proximate causation is that we're going to deem, or that the law deems, that the causation of the damages are legally sufficient. Okay. Under tort law, that's what you have to satisfy to be able to prevail in a suit or a claim. Duty, breach of duty, damages exist, and you have to prove the amount of damages, and then legal and proximate causation. If you can show all those things, then you can, you have a claim, and you can bring it under U.S. law. And if you can prove all those things, you should be able to prevail. Now, beyond that, you then get into fraud type issues. You can have flat out fraud, which in this space really relates to was there any kind of misstatement of truth or facts, especially when you're dealing with securities laws. Securities laws are very, very specific. They require clear, full, and non-misleading communications about the investment, the nature of the investment, the company, how returns are going to be developed or generated for the investors. Okay. You've got specific statutes that provide the ability to recover potentially. Consumer Protection Act, which can be a state law as well. So you've got state and federal variations of these things. Consumer Protection Acts, Corporate or Business Fair Practices Act. Many states have those kinds of statutes, and those statutes go into defining, what is a fair or an appropriate business practice, what's not, and you can, in a given state, under its state statutes, get into violations of those laws or regulations, and oftentimes those things actually provide a legal mechanism for recovery. So we're talking about the ability to get the judgment, the ability to have a legitimate, non-frivolous, under the law, legal claim. Okay. Mm-hmm. So in the end, these are some different theories of recovery. So we talked about tort, talked about beyond that, just, kind of think of tort as just wrongdoing. Okay. Mm-hmm. Bringing a suit or a cause or a claim just for kind of general wrongdoing. Then we get into more specific things, specific fraud or things related to fraud or misrepresentation. And there oftentimes are specific laws that define, especially in certain specific industries, and that's especially true in securities. That's all what the securities laws are all about is, was there full and fair disclosure? Were things handled honestly, or was anyone, misguiding anyone else? Was anyone not giving full disclosure about the nature of the investment? So oftentimes in investments, we see documents that are referred to as prospectus documents that mm-hmm. detail, give in great detail the specifics about an investment. And oftentimes, actually the vast majority of the time, anyone who's trying to sell a security or certain kinds of investments to other people, the people purchasing those securities or investments have to be qualified investors. So it's not just open to selling that investment to anybody. Yeah, they have to be qualified investors. There are exceptions, all the way through these laws at every stage, but the default and the general rules apply. A couple of years ago, not too long ago, we got new laws in the United States, federal laws, with regard to crowdfunding. Mm-hmm. Because crowdfunding, in essence, in its very essence, is a form of selling a security. And a lot of people went to the federal legislature, went to the government and said, hey, we want some provisions to be able to allow for limited, the ability to raise funds to a limited degree, not massive amounts of funds, and to kind of bypass some of these, difficult regulations. Mm-hmm. And they can be very difficult, and they're very, very specific, and they're very, very arduous to make sure that you're in compliance with. So the actual answer to your question is, it will at times, depending on the case, depending on the facts, be hard to recover, or could be difficult to recover. My attitude is never say never, and really until you get into actually trying to recover, you don't know what you'll be able to recover. So this is after you've won the judgment. Mm-hmm. And you can't start collecting on a judgment until you've got the judgment. So you've got to go through the claim, go through the suit, and prevail. And then at that point, once you have the judgment from the court saying that you win and the amount of money that is awarded is X amount, Now you get to start trying to collect on it.
Okay.
Now, during the discovery process of a claim or a suit, maybe you will have identified more assets than you were aware of prior to discovery and prior to initiating the suit. So the difficulty here is kind of a chicken and the egg problem. You want to bring your suit. You don't want to bring a suit maybe unless you know that you can recover, but you're not maybe going to know that you can fully recover until after you get through the suit, because you don't get to start recovering anything until you have the legal right or ability to recover. So the short answer is, if someone's in the wrong legally, and you can meet the necessary legal standards for whatever type of claim you're bringing, then you can win a judgment. And then after that, you have to begin trying to collect.
Wow. So short answer, yes, they can take action, but really what they need to do is contact a lawyer, hopefully a cryptocurrency lawyer, someone like yourself, in order to get that fact-specific stuff, so that way you can proceed forward.
Yeah, I mean, any lawyer that's asked these types of questions is going to say, answer that question yes. You need to go talk to a lawyer. That's kind of the programmed response that lawyers are taught in law school. If someone says, do I need to talk to a lawyer? The answer is always yes. You need to talk to a lawyer. So understand that, full disclosure there.
Okay. Well, good to know. Well, I'll say, I know we're going along here, so I'll ask one more question, but I know as we're talking, there's some things that I just thought of for maybe the next time we chat. And so I think next time we chat, we could maybe talk about some ICOs and regulations, as well as how businesses are doing international business with this whole cryptocurrency space. But for right now, I think we should just end on this question in terms of, a lot of people postulate that with smart contracts, lawyers aren't going to be needed any longer. So how do you see smart contracts affecting your line of work?
Sure. Smart contracts, most people don't understand, and this is something I would really plug. Most people, and I'm not being critical, I don't mean to be critical, most people don't understand blockchain technology, or especially the term smart contracts. Some of the people that listen to you even, or other people like you, they're interested in cryptocurrency. They've already decided they're investing in it, but still they may not understand blockchain technology or what a smart contract is. And I just want to plug, go learn about what actually blockchain technology is and what smart contracts are and the implications of that. So kind of in a general sense, smart contracts and blockchain technology, smart contracts within blockchain technology are going to clarify a lot of transactions between humans, what's agreed to, what's expected, what's needed, what's required, so on and so forth. Certain areas of the law will be heavily affected by smart contracts and by blockchain technology. Others, not quite as much. I think actually that that more than blockchain technology and smart contracts, I think artificial intelligence will tremendously affect the legal industry across the board, generally speaking. Now we've got AI and blockchain technology starting to, look at being integrated, and that's going to be really, really interesting. And I have no idea what the end result of that's going to be. Blockchain technology just in and of itself, though, for example, and I said just a minute ago, different areas of the law will be affected very heavily. I think one area potentially in the law that will be heavily affected is what attorneys refer to as the Uniform Commercial Code. And so this is it is exactly what it sounds like, the Uniform Commercial Code. It's a code that meant to be uniform, that regulates certain kinds of commercial transactions, basically the sale of goods, tangible goods. And a big portion of the Uniform Commercial Code deals with, and there are attorneys that's all they do is Uniform Commercial Code law, and so it's actually a very big segment of our society. So just think of all the goods that are bought and shipped, Walmart, Target, whatever, any big chain store, Costco, Sam's Club, etc. So Uniform Commercial Code deals with things like, for example, risk of loss. When something is shipped, who bears the risk of loss of the goods? From the time that the goods leave the manufacturer's plant to the time that it is signed for, at the receiving dock of the company that's buying, or the person or whoever that's buying the product. So primarily these are business to business transactions. Mm-hmm. Okay. So smart contracts, other aspects, before I go into that, other aspects of the Uniform Commercial Code deal with, how much is being bought. So say that you've got two companies that have routinely in the past carried out certain types of transactions with a certain number of goods. 10,000 pairs of shoes or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then kind of a new unique request for those goods comes through, and the shipper just sends off the standard amount that had always been requested in the past. And then it gets, it's received at the company that is buying the product. And then, they might sign for the product, but then they realize that they didn't get the amount that they requested. The amount that was sent because the history was so clear that this company always bought the same amount. And mm-hmm. So someone just assumed, that they wanted the same amount. They didn't look at the actual paperwork. Well, so smart contracts will, do tremendous things for that area of law. Will clarify all the way through from beginning to end. It'll remove a lot of human error in the chain, of those kinds of things. And very large companies are starting to bring online blockchain technology and smart contract technology to carry out their logistical business. Logistics is an area of specialization within business. You can go to business school and get an MBA, and you can specialize in logistics. Mm-hmm. It's very mathematically based and more difficult than most people would think. Smart contracts are going to play a huge role in that. In relation to the law, that's going to really heavily affect the Uniform Commercial Code. A lot of things, a lot of human error, assumption, those kinds of things will be kind of washed away because there's no when the product's pulled off the shelf, and a lot of stuff will be done by robots and machines in the future, probably, foreseeable future. Mm-hmm. And smart contracts are really going to play into that. So whoever's pulling it, or if it's a machine, it's going to look directly at what's in the smart contract. And there's really going to be no discrepancies because of blockchain technology, how it works, in what version of a document. So a document can be sent, and then someone says, "Oh, I made a mistake on the paperwork," so they fix it and they resend it. They fax a second copy. Mm-hmm. Smart contracts are really going to make all those kinds of errors and things go away. Other areas of the law won't be anywhere near as heavily affected. And that will depend on what the lawyers, what the judges, what legislatures in states or federally do. So, and this kind of speaks to the famous U.S. Supreme Court case Marbury versus Madison in 1803, where the court stated it is emphatically the duty of the judicial department to say what the law is. Mm-hmm. Law School 101, every law student is taught Marbury versus Madison, because that case, in a very unique, kind of interesting, unforeseeable way, prior to that case set the precedent for the fact that we all now accept that the U.S. Supreme Court has the final say on what the law is. Prior to Marbury versus Madison, that was not clear. So, it might be that a legislature tries to pass certain laws that change, that affect smart contracts and how that might play out relative to the legal industry or the determination of law. And then the Supreme Court might say, nope, the Constitution doesn't permit that. Courts retain the power and authority under Marbury Marbury versus Madison,
Hmm.
to say what the law is. And so that kind of preserves the power of judges, right? Which right
Yeah.
now they're only human, and right now machines don't have the ability to go and get law licenses, no matter how smart they are.
Sure.
Will that change in the future? We don't know. So, but the court system will have a direct input in that because, again, under Marbury versus Madison, the U.S. Supreme Court gets to say what the law is. Will they permit smart contracts or even AI to step in and take that role, even if they can do that role better?
That's
We don't
that's that's very interesting. That's kind of like the whole Terminator thing. Like, our machines, do they get to make the decisions over humans? And so that's kind of an interesting point there.
Well, and think about this. So how many people have had the experience of, at some point in time being in front of a judge? Could be criminal matter, could be a civil matter, could be family law matter, custody dispute over children, or divorce, generally division of property. And how often have people walked away out of the courtroom feeling like the judge made the wrong decision, or not even feeling like it, but maybe even being told by an attorney that that was a totally wrong decision, and you absolutely have an appealable case. Let's appeal this up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what if what are the implications of having AI? That's why I said AI, I think, has more potential to affect the legal industry. What effect would it have, or what implications would it have if you had, an intelligent machine that, with absolute consistency, could apply the law to the facts of every given case in a truly unbiased manner?
Mm-hmm.
All humans are biased. All humans have experience, baggage, and background, right?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, judges are human.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not advocating, anything crazy. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it's going to be a very interesting future. And as all these kinds of things develop, and blockchain's part of it, okay, because of the unbroken linkage of chained data. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Think of, for example, sending an email. You send an email, you think it's sent, you think the other person got it, but they never receive it. Well, in blockchain technology, you have an unbroken chain of information. You can store documents in blockchain technology. We have machines right now that can carry out complex surgeries with better efficiency and more safety than any human surgeons statistically across an aggregate. When you're looking at the data, okay, can do certain surgeries far more efficiently and far more safely than human surgeons. So at some point, are surgeons going to be replaced? Well, kind of the same thing applies to the legal industry, to judges, to lawyers. A computer that has instant recall on hundreds of thousands of cases, millions of cases, every case, within the whole history of our nation or of the world. No human lawyer can compete with that. I don't care how smart you are. No human lawyer can compete with that if you add intelligence, true intelligence, to that mixture. So, but blockchain technology is part of that, because blockchain technology and smart contracts have the ability to provide a degree of fidelity of information from beginning of process to end of process.
Yeah.
So, short term, there will be some effects. Certain areas of the law will be heavily affected. Others won't be as heavily affected. Long term, anything's possible. I mean, Elon Musk is known for having concern about AI, and I would add into that, I see blockchain and AI as being something that's definitely going to be paired in the future.
Yeah.
And go listen to things that Elon Musk. He's much more intelligent, knowledgeable than me about all of this. Go listen to what he says. I mean, literally, you brought up Terminator. I believe I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I believe he has indicated things, that others have restated as basically he's worried about artificial intelligence in the form of basically, Skynet and Terminator, that kind of stuff. But, when you've got the ability to have true intelligence with unlimited ability to know everything. That's the implications are vast.
Yeah.
The implications are vast. So who knows? The sky is the limit, and probably not even that. Probably nothing is the limit.
Well, then I guess we shall see. It comes down to.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Josh, we appreciate you being here. We know your time is valuable. And everybody, you can visit him at Legal Crypto Pro if you want to get in contact with him for any of his legal services. We'll also have that description down below. Also, don't forget, if you have any questions that you'd like to address in our next video, go ahead and write those down below. And so we'll see everybody in the next video.
Thanks, Bart.
We'll see ya.
Take care.
Wasn't that interesting? I thought you'd really enjoy this. So please go and check out his channel, Investing with Jam Bart. He's fantastic. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.